You finally build up the courage to confront them. You are calm, you are reasonable, you just want to explain how their actions hurt you. But within 3 minutes, the entire narrative flips. Suddenly they're crying. Suddenly bringing up your pain is proof of how insensitive you are. And somehow, by the end of the conversation, you are the one apologizing. You walk away feeling dizzy, confused, and drained. You aren't crazy. You just stepped into the trap of a professional victim. But why do they do this? Why is their vulnerability weaponized? And what is the terrifying psychological link between the person crying on your couch and one of the most toxic personality disorders known to psychology? Today, we are opening the dark playbook of the victim mentality. By the end of this video, you will never look at their tears the exact same way again. To understand the professional victim, we have to look past the dramatic tears and examine the psychological engine driving this behavior. In psychology, this phenomenon is heavily tied to a foundational concept called the external locus of control. Imagine your life is a ship. A person with an internal locus of control believes they are the captain standing at the wheel. If the ship hits an iceberg, they look at the damage and ask, "How did I steer us here? And what can I do to fix this?" But a person trapped in a severe victim mentality operates with an external locus of control. They believe they are merely a helpless passenger tied to the mast. To them, life isn't something they actively participate in. Life is something that constantly happens to them. The weather is unfairly against them, the ocean hates them, and that iceberg deliberately jumped out of nowhere just to ruin their journey. This isn't just a convenient excuse for bad behavior, it is a profound cognitive distortion. Deep down, their ego, their fundamental sense of self, is incredibly fragile. Taking real responsibility requires immense vulnerability. It requires looking in the mirror and admitting, "I messed up." For the professional victim, that specific thought is completely, psychologically, unbearable. So their brain deploys a heavy-duty defense mechanism, absolute denial of fault. No matter how small the issue, their mind will completely bend reality, rewrite history, and scan the environment until it finds a villain to blame. And if you happen to be standing closest to them, tag, you are it. But how do you spot them before you get dragged into their emotional storm? Let's look at the 3 classic behavioral signs. I guarantee you will instantly recognize someone you personally know. Sign number 1, the yes but game. You have definitely been in this frustrating situation before. They call you to complain about a terrible boss or a highly toxic partner. Because you genuinely care about them, you offer a logical, step-by-step solution. "Why don't you talk to HR?" you suggest. "Yes, but HR is friends with my boss," they quickly reply. "Okay, what about updating your resume?" "Yes, but the job market is completely terrible right now." Here is the dark psychological truth. They do not actually want a practical solution. Real solutions require immediate action, and action demands taking personal responsibility. Instead, they are playing an exhausting psychological game where the only winning move is for you to finally give up and just validate their endless misery. They don't want to be saved from the fire. They just want a captive audience to sit and watch them burn. Sign number 2, the archive of wrongs. While most healthy people try to process their trauma and eventually move on, the professional victim collects past offenses like rare, incredibly valuable coins. They possess a terrifyingly encyclopedic memory of exactly who wronged them 5, 10, or even 20 years ago. These mental files are carefully preserved and frequently weaponized. They will confidently pull them out during any minor argument to prove a permanent, unchangeable narrative. The entire universe is fundamentally rigged against them. Letting go of these old, exhausting grudges would mean completely losing their favorite conversational weapon, so they hold on to that pain forever. Sign number 3, moral superiority. This is arguably the most dangerous and hidden sign of all. Over time, the victim mentality often mutates into a full-blown martyr complex. They begin to deeply believe that simply because they suffer more than anyone else, they are inherently morally superior to everyone else around them. Their pain literally becomes their entire personality and their core identity. In their distorted mind, your happiness, stability, or success is just definitive proof that you haven't struggled the way they have. That automatically makes you superficial, privileged, and shallow, while they remain deep, profound, and tragically misunderstood. They wear their chronic suffering like a heavy, golden crown, and if you ever try to gently take it off their head to help them see clearly, they will viciously fight you to keep it right where it is. But wait, before we go any further into the dark side of this behavior, we need to pause and ask a very important question. Does complaining about a bad day at work or crying over a broken heart make you a professional victim? Absolutely not. And if you're worried right now that you might be toxic just because you share your struggles, take a deep breath. Let's clear that up right now. There is a massive psychological difference between venting and victimizing. Venting is a healthy, normal human behavior. When you vent to a friend, you are experiencing an emotional overflow, and you just need a safe space to release the pressure. But here is the key. Venting has an expiration date. Eventually the tears stop, you take a deep breath, and you ask yourself, okay, how do I move forward? Venting is a two-way street. You speak, your friend listens, and tomorrow you will be there to listen to them. Victimizing, on the other hand, is not about releasing pressure. It is about building a permanent identity. It is an endless, exhausting loop. There is no expiration date, no desire for a resolution, and absolutely no two-way street. When a professional victim speaks, they aren't looking for a safe space to heal. They are looking for a psychological dumping ground. They will siphon your emotional energy for hours, leaving you completely drained and depleted while they walk away, feeling strangely lighter and energized. So please do not silence your own pain out of fear of being a burden. Sharing your genuine struggles is human connection, but demanding that someone else constantly carry the heavy, unbearable weight of your unhealed life, that is quiet manipulation. At this point, you might be asking, why would anyone consciously choose to be miserable? This brings us to a psychological concept that completely changes how we view human behavior: secondary gain. Secondary gain is the hidden, unconscious reward a person receives from staying in a negative situation. In our modern, fast-paced society, attention is currency, and playing the victim is the ultimate heartbreaking hack to get that currency. It extracts attention, sympathy, and delicate care from other people without requiring any actual achievement or growth. It is also the ultimate shield. Think about it. If you are perpetually broken, deeply traumatized, or constantly oppressed, nobody can expect anything from you. It perfectly rationalizes their procrastination, excuses their repeated failures, and shields them from the heavy, terrifying burden of living up to their true potential. But here is where we must pause and approach this with deep, genuine empathy. We have to talk about a dark, devastating phenomenon called learned helplessness. Discovered by psychologist Martin Seligman, this occurs when an individual faces repeated, inescapable trauma in their early past, perhaps a deeply abusive childhood, severe neglect, or a severely toxic relationship that completely shattered their spirit. Their brain literally learned that fighting back was completely useless, and that no matter what they did, the unbearable pain would come anyway. The ultimate tragedy of the professional victim is that very often their initial trauma was incredibly real, and their pain was entirely valid. But that specific trauma eventually became a heavy coat of armor they now refuse to take off, even when the war has been over for years. They are still sitting curled up in a cold cage, staring at the floor, completely unaware that the cage door has finally been left wide open for them to walk out. It is a profound, heartbreaking tragedy, but understanding the devastating reality of their past does not mean you have to sacrifice yourself and become the collateral damage of their presence. But in recent years, this dynamic has evolved into something far more sophisticated and, frankly, far more dangerous. We have entered an era defined by the dark side of modern therapy speak. Mental health awareness is incredibly important, but as psychological terminology has flooded the internet, the professional victim has quietly upgraded their entire arsenal. They are no longer just crying, they are diagnosing. They have learned the sacred vocabulary of healing, but they are not using it to actually heal. They are actively weaponizing it to build an impenetrable fortress against any form of personal accountability. Have you noticed how quickly a perfectly normal, everyday disagreement suddenly turns into a severe clinical accusation? If you express frustration about their behavior, you are suddenly gaslighting them. If you try to hold them accountable for a broken promise, you are violating their boundaries or triggering their past trauma. If you decide to finally walk away from the exhausting chaos, you are abandoning a vulnerable person and being incredibly toxic. Do you see the brilliant, terrifying manipulation happening here? By hijacking the language of therapy, they instantly seize the ultimate moral high ground. They transform every single conflict into a scenario where they are the fragile patient, and you are the ruthless abuser. It is a psychological checkmate. You cannot argue with someone who uses clinical terms to completely invalidate your lived reality. This weaponized therapy speak shuts down all healthy, two-way communication, leaving you completely silenced, walking on eggshells, and constantly questioning your own sanity, while they comfortably and safely avoid ever having to look in the mirror. But here is where the story takes a dark, deeply unsettling turn. What happens when the perpetual victim finally realizes exactly how much immense power their tears actually hold over you? There is a razor-thin, terrifying line between being a chronic victim and becoming a covert manipulator. When we hear the word narcissist, we usually picture someone loud, arrogant, and relentlessly boastful, the person constantly taking selfies. Now, we must completely turn the psychological mirror around and look closely at ourselves. We have spent this entire time deeply analyzing the professional victim, but we need to ask a much harder, more painful question. Why do you stay? Why do you constantly allow these emotional vampires to drain you completely dry? The incredibly uncomfortable truth is that a professional victim simply cannot survive without a willing patient host. They rely entirely on people who possess a deep, unconscious need to rescue others. If you are a highly empathetic, caring person, you likely suffer from a savior complex or profound codependency. You are biologically and emotionally wired to heal, fix, and soothe. You falsely believe that if you just love them hard enough, listen long enough, or sacrifice enough of your own mental peace, you can finally cure their endless, suffocating pain. But here is the harsh, awakening psychological reality you must face right now. Your relentless compassion is not actually helping them, it is actively harming them. Every single time you drop your own boundaries to rush in and save them from a dramatic crisis they created, you are not showing genuine love. You are providing toxic enabling. You are actively feeding the exact same psychological monster that is destroying their life and completely exhausting yours. You cannot save someone who actively uses their bleeding wounds as a comfortable, warm blanket. By staying and endlessly fixing their self-inflicted problems, you secretly become an accomplice in their lifelong psychological stagnation. True, healthy love sometimes requires stepping back and letting them fall. It is finally time to step out of the enabler trap. So, how do you finally disarm a professional victim? How do you permanently protect your mental peace without completely losing your humanity and deep compassion. First, you must actively implement a highly effective psychological tool known as the grey rock method. When they inevitably start spiraling into a dramatic, exhausting, blame-shifting monologue designed to pull you under, you must intentionally become as incredibly boring and emotionally unresponsive as a plain grey rock. Do not offer any helpful solutions. Do not passionately argue back, and never try to defend yourself against their wild accusations. Instead, give them completely neutral, flat, emotionless responses like, or "that sounds very frustrating." A professional victim feeds entirely on your intense emotional reaction. When you firmly stop feeding them the chaotic drama they desperately crave, they will eventually starve and seek their psychological supply elsewhere. Second, and most importantly, you must deploy the ultimate boundary phrase. Memorize these exact words to protect yourself. The next time they violently dump their self-inflicted chaos onto your lap and quietly wait for you to fix it, look them directly in the eye and calmly say, "I am so deeply sorry you are going through this right now. What are your exact steps to solve it?" That single brilliant sentence instantly returns the heavy locus of control directly back to them, where it truly belongs. It proves you're listening, but it firmly refuses to carry their luggage. Always remember this crucial psychological rule: empathy without strict, unwavering boundaries is simply emotional self-sabotage. To those who have spent years playing the exhausted rescuer, it is officially time to resign from a job you were never qualified for. You are not their therapist, and their healing is not your responsibility. And if you're watching this, wondering if you might be stuck in the victim mentality, remember this: your past pain is entirely valid. What happened might not have been your fault, but your healing is your absolute responsibility. Taking off the armor of the victim is terrifying, but it is the only way to become the hero of your own life. If this video helped you feel seen today, you are not alone. Please subscribe and let's talk in the comments. Have you ever dealt with a professional victim? Share your story below. We explore the quiet parts of the human mind here. Guard your empathy and see you next time. Thank you for watching.